Under the same moon, we share the love. Embracing the differences like hand in glove. Spreading peace and joy, it's a beautiful sight. Together we shine in each other's light. And now do we stand in love's pure might. Watching the world share in love and light. Hearts beating as one in our peaceful flight. Colors of harmony painting the night. Now here we stand in love's pure might.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Watching the World. I'm your host. My name is Mel, and tonight we're having a critical, no-nonsense conversation that cuts straight through the headlines, and we clear the noise. We get right to the facts. Joining me tonight is law professor Candace Kelly, and tonight we're breaking down three major stories that are shaping the public trust, global power, and justice system that everybody is so concerned about. So let me bring on with us Candace Kelly. Welcome in.
Hey, good to see you, Mel. Very good to see you. Thank you for having me, as always.
All right, good deal. So what have you been thinking about the whole epidemic that happened today?
We're going to hear so much about this because Minneapolis has always been a hotbed when it comes to anything having to do with the police. But of course, we have these ICE officials that have been there. So it's a power struggle once again between what the federal authorities want, what local authorities want, and what people on the ground want, including the mayor, who said today, listen, stay the F out of our town. We don't need you. We know that you don't have anything in terms of safety that is for us. So I think this goes back just to kind of this push and pull to, with George Floyd all the way up to now, and understanding that this is a city that has been watched for a while, and it's been a hotbed of political dispute for years and years. So it continues, and now we have to see whether or not ICE will actually leave. What we're going to hear now is a spin of different stories. I know that we've all looked at the tape, and there's a lot of ways that people are spinning this. So we look for the spin, we look for the decisive answers, and what's going to happen now, as we've been seeing from text messages and other evidence, is to try to figure out and balance what actually happened today when this 37-year-old woman was shot and killed.
Wow, such a sad day, but something that we can rejoice about. Would you believe we had 50 people that beat us to the live today? Isn't that amazing? 50
Oh, wow. Hey,
listen.
All right. That is some good news. And you know what I love about this is that you go to court or I go to court and we're able to see firsthand what's going on and bring people the stories. People see you out there on the street. You always go live. And that makes a very, very big difference when we're talking about different types of media that are out there. Consistency is really the winner here. So I think that's why folks are beating us to the punch coming online.
All right. It's so amazing. I want to share something with you if you don't mind. I'm going to show you the first angle of the sad event that happened today. I want to warn the audience that this is pretty graphic. It's the actual shooting. So if it's too much for you, I do understand, but we want to cover it today. And we're also pulling these videos right off of Instagram and TikTok. So you're getting to see what people actually post. In fact, one of the guys that actually took the video, I was able to get it from him. So I'm going to start off with this video first.
ICE is shooting innocent women in the head. End this bullshit now. Is this a police state run by hate? America is guilty.com.
Shame!
So that was the officer that was involved in the actual shooting. Now we're going to get to it.
You are fucking criminals! You're fucking
forgotten that once we were.
Okay, so that's one of the videos and one angle already. You can see how graphic that is. You know, it's tough stuff, right?
Yeah, it is tough. It is tough, especially when you realize that, you know, this is in front of a live audience. This is in front of people who are there, children, women, mother, you know, who's looking out of their windows. So all of this in terms of allowing yourself as a police officer to look at a car that is leaving you to now claim self-defense. What type of dystopian era are we living in where this can actually take place? Well, it is taking place, and I assure you they're going to come up with a defense that they felt threatened in some way, shape, or form with the car leaving them. This is the good thing is that we have the video of it, because this is ridiculous, Mel. It doesn't make any sense. Any police officer trained knows that when someone is leaving the scene of a crime, you are no longer in danger and you cannot claim self-defense. That is clearly what was going on here.
Absolutely terrible. I want to show you a different angle of the same instance here. All right.
Get the fuck out of our neighborhood!
So this video helped me understand what's really happening here. It looked like ICE was doing their daily business and people were actually fighting back and getting involved and trying to get in the way. And so this is where we're starting to see people are saying before it even happens, get the F out of here and so forth, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. That's exactly what it looks like. But then you do have to ask yourself, and I know we'll get to that point, when does the escalation arise to self-defense? And that's what people should look for.
Okay. All right. So let's get to it.
What the fuck? Dude, what the fuck? Dude, you did a murder for what?
So the poor lady lost her life today. A lot of people are saying it was a terroristic act on her part for trying to run over an ICE officer, but we're starting to hear different sides that it may not have been as aggressive on her part. But, you know, people are so divided, it's hard to say.
Yeah. And again, we are in a place where there's already serious mistrust in the police force, serious mistrust in the federal government. And you have people who are, which is why we have so many views of this, because people are ready to make sure that their videos become a part of the record and become evidence in order to make sure that they're defending not only themselves, but other people in their community. That's why we're seeing these videos. And it's really important that people continue to shoot like they have in terms of shooting video. So one of the things that people are going to really get into is just the use of force once again. So this echoes what we have been seeing in 2020 with George Floyd. Again, this community is still healing from that. So is the world still healing from that. And now we have this. So, I mean, a terrible situation, I mean, anywhere, but especially on a community that has already gone through so much, Mel.
Yeah, absolutely. I think initially people thought that the lady would be Hispanic, right?
Yes, yes. I heard reports of her being Hispanic. I heard reports of her being white, which is interesting because you know that anytime that you change the race of the person involved, you actually do change the narrative, because that's the divisive political world that we live in now, that if they're Latino, if they're Somalian, if they're Black, if they're white, if they're male, if they're female, it's going to change the whole narrative and what was going on. So we heard a lot of conflicting reports until we finally got who this woman was, who was taken to the hospital and who she ultimately died.
Were you shocked to hear the mayor really say for ICE to get out of town?
Yeah. You don't want to say the bad words. He did say get out of town in no uncertain terms. You know, I wasn't at all. He has a history of being this person who is very forceful in terms of his word choice, a younger mayor. someone who really opened the eyes of a lot of people in terms of how you actually run a town or a community. So I am not surprised. And here's the thing, you have to speak the language of the person who is suppressing you. And you can't play nice with someone who has thousands of agents come into your town and shoot people in the middle of a wintry day in the middle of January. So you have to speak their language. And so he picked the strongest language that he could in order to make sure that people heard, in order to make sure that the soundbite lived on. So he did a good job of that, because we all heard that. It's not language that we normally hear from a mayor, but we are certainly hearing a lot more of that type of language across the country, because you have to be forceful if you want people to actually listen to what you say. Otherwise, you're going to have Trump on Truth Social saying exactly what he wants to say, using all kinds of language, using all types of videos and AI. Remember when he had that AI video where a bunch of bowel movement was spread across the country. He is using it to his favor in the most heavy-handed way, and that really is how you meet him if you want to even be heard.
Have you ever noticed how most of these events now they are pushed through a lens of either their left behavior or right behavior? This is leftist, this is right. Why do you think it's come to this?
Yeah, it's come to this because this is the way that we are playing politics, and this is the way that we have actually trained people to think about the world in which we live, especially as a part of the voting cycle, right? And this has happened especially since Obama, and in terms of people looking at the world in kind of a left, right, literal black, white world in order to figure out where do we fit in. I think what's interesting is that there are a lot of issues, for example, when it comes to healthcare or when it comes to, abortion rights, that kind of supersede that, even though we can talk about the disparity between blacks and whites in both our areas, but that's something that affects everyone. So many of these topics that we're talking about, they have everybody speaking. But if you are able to divide, literally, right? Divide and conquer, as the saying goes. If you're able as a politician to divide the people in front of you, then you can actually literally conquer them. Because now you've got all these divisions and people in various factions fighting. And then meanwhile, the president or anybody in the executive office is able to do whatever they want and use their powers in order to write executive orders or in order to go into Venezuela. I know that we'll talk about that, or in order to override what the Congress says in some way, shape, or form. Divide and conquer has been the way of this administration, and it always has been. And now we are here, and social media does not make it better. We divide, we conquer, and then we go online, and then the algorithms that we have, Mel, continue and force us to stay divided, because we're actually looking at things that we want to hear, and we actually don't get a chance to see and understand fully the other side. This is America, as the saying goes, and that's why we are so divided at this time.
What's amazing is that this happened in a place where racial tension was already extremely high, right? From all of the propaganda happening with the fraud.
Yeah. Racial tension was already high. And again, it's a microcosm of the larger United States of America, and also what's going on in the world. We can go to other countries and there are parallel issues in terms of how people of color are treated, how women are treated, how people who are poor are treated. And we have all of those things that are going on now when we talk about this microcosm of Minneapolis. It represents what's going on nationally and also abroad. So there are different levels through which we can look at it in terms of looking at the lens here. But Minneapolis, again, is that hotbed for looking at what's going on in the world when it comes to race and racism. And we see how this is playing out. And this is once again playing out in a way that effectively represents what's going on across the country. What you're seeing here is what we're seeing in other communities of color across the country. It didn't happen in Chicago for a reason, because there was so much pushback and fight back. But you have to have people in control, and you have to have power, and you have to be able to fight it out. And so Minneapolis is one of those places who is now taking it to the next level and saying, get out. They've said it before, but ICE came in. Now that we're really, Mel, I think we're really going to see them lay the law of the land and say, you got to go. And they're going to doing everything that they can right now to get them out.
Speaking of abroad, I was in court Monday for Nicolás Maduro. What do you think about that?
Wow. Hey, I want to ask you, what do you think about that? I just know that everything from the perp walk and his slip-on shoes, right, that he had on, and the way that we have seen this president portrayed, and then to contrast that with what we saw in the wee hours of the morning. My goodness, talk about a precedent case. I mean, this has happened in America before with who Manuel Noriega, but we know that this is something that we are in 2025. This is a different administration, and Trump has vowed to take over Venezuela. So I think that I am day by day just waiting to see what is actually going to happen with this country, who's going to be in control of the oil, and how these powers that want this oil are really going to play out. Then you also have international concerns and whether or not the executive branch even had the right to actually do this, go into this sovereign state. So I think it's still early on. I really want to hear from you what it was like seeing him in person, seeing his wife in person. I understand that they really were very bruised. I can imagine that a lot happened during their capture.
Yeah, absolutely. He looked like he was unscathed, but his wife was badly beaten, especially about the face. And during the proceeding, the attorney mentioned that, for the judge to render some sort of medical, let them go out for medical aid because she had some rib, probably fracture, she thought, or so. It hasn't been identified, but perhaps it could be.
Yeah. Did you think that, I mean, he seemed, of course, we know that all of this, anytime that you have someone in court, you're getting the best version of yourself. It's like when you're dating somebody, right? We're married now, but let's go back, right? You get the best version of yourself when you date someone. I saw how polite he was to people, and he wished people Happy New Year when he was going through, and he was shaking people's hands and saying thank you and good morning. And I was wondering if you thought he seemed genuine in him declaring that, he was kidnapped and all the things that he said in court. Did he seem genuine, or did it seem like an act to you?
The guy brought about a presence of power in the room that was hard to explain, and a lot of people felt that way. In fact, he's in the same courtroom as Sean Diddy Combs' trial, so that's of note. I know you've been there before.
Oh wow, okay.
Exact same courtroom. He walks out, and instead of, we're sitting closer to him than we sat to Sean Diddy Combs, so we're like 4 rows behind him. And it's amazing that when he walked out, first thing when they opened the door, you could hear them drop the shackles, and we didn't hear that ever for Sean Diddy Combs. He walked out, you never heard chains or anything. Maduro, you heard all the chains. Okay, he walks out, he looks beyond the first 3 rows, and he looks basically toward the back where we're sitting. And he starts to say Happy New Year, and he starts looking at us individually, trying to appeal to us that are sitting, in his eye shot, and I happen to be right there, too.
Yeah.
And so his wife came out. She was a little bit on the quiet side. In fact, a lot of people didn't even realize she was there until they actually called her name, and she stood up. And even when she stood up, she had her hands behind her back. But when she turned around, you could see her face is just tattered.
Wow. Had bandages on it from what it looked like?
No bandages, but it seemed
Okay.
to be open wounds from what I could see.
Wow. What you painted was really like a movie. I mean, I hear the clanking of whatever artillery was on his, hands or feet or what have you, because that is very different. And I would imagine that makes a big difference. Obviously, there's nobody else there in terms of a jury and other people taking it in. But to hear that, I think that paints an interesting picture for the public that will and could potentially be part of the jury to see him in those chains and hear him speak during the arraignment. Looks like a pretty tall guy.
Big, tall guy. Yeah. Very tall. Yeah. And he's very smart. I'll tell you one thing. He's very clever, and I'll tell you why. Remember in Sean Diddy Combs' case, how everybody felt sorry for Cassie, and it was rightly so. She was being kicked around like a rag doll, as they say. But remember how all of a sudden this recording actually came out about her friend who had a video that had leaked, and she was like, she wanted to see the video, and he was like, no. And she started telling him, I will kill you, I will bury
Yes,
you. Boo,
yes,
boo.
yes,
That leaked out for a reason because they're trying to, restrain the narrative, especially for the public, right? They're trying to sway the public. So in
yes.
this case, right, for his proceeding, he kept saying, "I'm the president of Venezuela. I was kidnapped from my home." He said that like 3 times. And imagine what that does for the public because it gets out, just like with Luigi Mangione
That's
when they
right.
put out the 2-hour video. They're trying to sway the media. So he did a good job in trying to defend himself, and he's saying, I was kidnapped on Saturday. I'm the president. My people don't have a president, things like that.
Yeah, yeah. And you're right. That does lay the groundwork for people to see him in a certain way. And that really is the question. Is he actually the president of this sovereign state? Because America doesn't recognize him as such. And that's where they're able to get ends in this whole process and kind of evade the international process of bringing him over. Now, these were actually indictments that have been out there for years. And they're saying, meaning the government is saying, this is someone who has indictments. And yes, this is self defense in that he has been terrorizing America because of the way that he is running drug gangs and narco terrorism and basically threatening America with all of the drugs that he is managing and gangs and things of that nature that he's bringing to the United States. So we're going to hear a lot about that, Mel, I think, in terms of, well, was he the president? And if he was he recognized by America? And if he wasn't, does that make a difference in terms of how he got here? But as you said, if he's saying, hey, listen, I'm the president and I was kidnapped, that's how I see it, we're hearing his defense right there. So he started out with the public defender, from what I understand now. He has the attorney that's the same as Julian Assange's. That as Julian Assange. So certainly that's going to bode quite well for him. Sharp attorney there. But there are a lot of issues that we're going to hear about. And whatever he said in court, we know that that's going to come out. And he's already beginning to try his case because we know that that's very important, Mel. Before any of the, jury and questionnaires are sent out, we know that the plaintiffs and the defendants try to plant seeds because we're picking from the public. These are the people who are going to come in and be people on the jury.
All right, guys, we have quite a few people here. Take a moment, hit the like button, share, and subscribe. Could you tell everyone what you do?
Yes, well, I am the host of the Not All Hood podcast. And of course, I come on here with you every Wednesday. I'm a legal commentator as well as I teach media law at Rowan University. I've been there for 20 years. And we talk about all types of issues and issues like this. Any case that actually makes it into a court, especially the Southern District of New York, we certainly know that there's going to be media issues that are involved. And so with all of that, this is a really interesting case to look at. But that is what I do in my full time, even though sometimes, Mel, we know that all of our outside stuff seems a lot like full time. And today I'm operating on 80%. So you're going to see me drinking a little bit, but I'm going to get better.
Doing quite well.
All right, good.
Remember during Sean Diddy Combs' trial, we had one outburst from Jacqueline. She had expressed herself and they pretty much tag teamed her and took her out of the courtroom.
Yeah.
Well, for Maduro's arraignment, it was quite the exchange. First off, they told us, listen, no talking to Maduro, his wife, or the judge, no comments, right? So when they had basically started leading him back out of the courtroom, somebody stood up in the back. Well, no, somebody just spoke out and they said, you're going to pay for what you did to the Venezuelan people. And then Maduro says back in Spanish, he says, I'm a man of God. And he says, I'm the president of Venezuela and I'm a prisoner of war. And then another guy sitting in front of me, he basically said, I'm a Muslim man of God. So at that point, the officers started, trying to figure out who's doing all the talking, and they were forcefully removing people from the courtroom.
Oh, wow. Yeah, now that must have been a scene because
Oh, my.
we know that when you go to court, those officers are really, really specific about what you can and cannot do. If they see you, you can't even have a cough drop, right? I've been having cough drops all day. I could not have that in court. If they saw my mouth moving, leave, leave. So I can imagine, was it a bit of a madhouse or was it taken care of very quickly and swiftly and quietly?
Yeah, I mean, it was a madhouse. They handled it. They had us all stand up, and that's when everything kind of happened too. And then there was a lady that put her head down, sitting next to me, and she basically said "F you" in Spanish. I guess that's what it boiled down to.
Wow.
But
Wow.
at that point, you saw there were so many DEA agents. I mean, you must have counted at least 200, not all in the courtroom, but throughout. You know how we're waiting in line. So many were just passing by, passing by. It was so amazing, you know.
Wow. So outside of the courtroom, can you take me there? Because you've got the DEA agents. I'm sure you have the protesters. Then you've got the media. Then you've got the public. I'm assuming. What was all that like?
Let me tell you, you haven't seen protesting until you arrive at this courthouse. I wasn't ready for what I saw. There were so many
Really?
Venezuelan people. Yeah, there were so many of them, and they were just going off and against Maduro, you know, and I was shocked to see that because I thought he would have more support. But most of the Venezuelan people there were actually against him. You had some guys there from Antifa, and they were for Maduro. Okay. And then you had other offshoots of different organizations and people having their own little protesting calls. So either they were for him, but it was so packed you couldn't even move around. The whole across the street where the media is lined up,
Yeah.
right in between the line and the playground, all packed. You couldn't even budge. People
I
jumping and shouting. It was a madhouse.
Yeah, I know that playground. Yeah, yeah. That's a lot of space to fill. And yeah, if it was packed there, then that is a huge deal. And I'm not surprised, I guess, that there were so many people who were against him. A lot of these people from Venezuela, and or if they're not from, they have stories about how their people were treated abroad. They have stories about not being a part of perhaps a democratic process and the way that he allegedly suppressed other people to run against him. So, and that's part of the reason why America does not recognize him as the leader of a sovereign state or country. So that being said, I'm not too surprised that that's happening. I do think it's a big risk because, as you say, you've got DEA agents, but you also have people's First Amendment rights, free to assemble and free to express what they're doing on public property. And if nobody's getting hurt, I bet that we will probably see even more. Do we know when is the next time he will be in court, or his wife, or how that will go?
March the 17th. So that's
Okay.
when they'll be back in court again for a hearing. That's the day before, on March the 18th. That's when Luigi Mangione in the state process. That's when the judge has to respond back. So both of those are neck and neck. In fact, this Friday, Luigi Mangione starts the federal hearing in the same courthouse. Might be the same courtroom. You never know.
Yeah. And so you're talking about the decision that the judge is going to be making to the evidence suppression hearings that we heard for a few weeks recently, right?
Yes, that's
Okay.
due. That's due on March the 18th.
Yeah, so that's a very big deal. That's really going to determine what type of case we're going to hear. Will we hear mountains of evidence, or will it be suppressed based upon, once again, the way that police have been acting? There's a theme tonight that I think is obvious. Police, how they act, how they've been trained, what they think is right and wrong. No one's on the same page. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? No one's on the same page, and it's a theme that we've been dealing with since police states were made. So not surprising at all.
So I have a declaration to make before you and everybody tonight.
Uh-oh, okay, I am ready. I
You
am
ready?
ready. Let me
You
let me
ready for
get my
this?
water.
I
Yes, go
want to. I
ahead.
want to say officially that Donald Trump is above the law, and can't nobody stop him.
Oh my gosh, is that your
Eh, eh,
declaration?
That's my declaration, and he's gonna do whatever his heart desire, and nobody's gonna call him out on it. Believe me.
Well,
That's watch out. Listen, watch how this unfolds. Donald Trump is unstoppable. I went to the courthouse where he
Okay.
received his 34 felonies. Same courthouse as Luigi's state case, right? The man became president within 2 months of that.
This is true. 34
So I just
felonies.
want to say it on the record. I just want to put it on the record. And so for all of these little places like Greenland and Cuba, if
Oh
Donald Trump
gosh.
if he wants it, he's going to get it. Believe it.
And there is something that we know of called discretion. And when we look at Article 2 of the Constitution, there is a lot of presidential discretion that Donald Trump has. And that is what he is using right now in order to move in this way, move on these indictments that he sees as a threat to the United States of America. And so there's just a lot of gray areas of the law where you are correct in that he is able to be this person. What did you say? Donald Trump is what? Invincible. What did you say? Invincible?
Yeah. Invincible, above the law.
Above the law. And that is because the interpretation and the way that we look at the law and the discretion that we have in and around it, and those people who are interpreting law who sit on the bench all the way up to the Supreme Court, all of that changes depending upon who is in place. And what he did, as we know, was over the years is he placed the right people for him in place in order for him to be, as now what you are declaring, above the law. His first term was really a tryout, right? He did not get it right. His second, and when I say right in terms of his eyes, for him, for you to declare that, he would say, now I did it right, because he planted all the seeds and now they're growing. And for him, I don't know, they are kind of looking like pretty roses, but we will see. I want to see what will still go on, Mel, in terms of the election down in Georgia, and whether or not he called officials there. That's still on the record and people are talking about it. We'll see, but you are right. The discretion that is there, the power that he has, he's also using powers that have been in place that other presidents have been slightly more polite, if you will, to execute, to separate the legislative, executive, and the judicial branches. People have been, somewhat fair over the years in general. Here we see a blurring. It actually doesn't really exist anymore. There is a complete overlap of everything. And that is because he is pushing the boundaries on what is written on paper. So some people would say more power to him. He figured it out. But on the other side, there are people who are still working against him. And I'm not sure if I'm going to declare that yet, but I will say so far, he's been quite impressive.
The only pushback that he's going to really get is if they lose the midterm elections at a good speed. I think that might change the score, but until then, he's going to do whatever he wants to do.
Exactly. And that's where you get the laws that come into place that could trump him, if you will, right? So that if he loses that, then he loses that particular branch and he can't really, use his discretion if the Republicans do not win those particular races that are in question, which I think we're talking about, 35? Somebody can put it in the chat. So, yeah.
Absolutely. But we're treading uncharted waters, I believe. Never seen anything quite like it, right?
Yeah, no, we haven't seen anything quite like it, but that's how it's been for years. Oh, we haven't, and that we're kind of immune to things. I don't know what really would surprise us these days. I mean, there was a young woman who was run over in, was it Virginia, when there were young men who were marching and saying Jews will not replace us, and she died. Like, this is not new. This is something that we have seen in recent years. But you're right, a lot is going on. A lot of it is not unprecedented, though. And I'm not sure what would surprise me these days. I'm really not. Listen, this is the Trump. Let's go back. Remember, this is the Trump that declared, I could shoot people in the leg if I wanted to. Nobody would come after me. I could, do all of these things, but nobody would come after me. And as you've declared, he has somewhat been able to get in and around that. And what he's also done, and I think this is really important, is use the First Amendment in a way that we haven't seen before. He really pushes the envelope in explaining to people his view, whether it's true or not, right? Because truth really can be in the eye of the beholder. Even if you know 2 plus 2 equals 4, you can have someone say that it's 5, and they can actually come on and say that over and over again until you get a lot of people hearting your post that says maybe. And that's the world that we are living in. Say anything. Meta says we're not going to fact check anymore. That happened the beginning of this year in January. And the First Amendment is in this wild, wild west that everybody's just trying out as they go along. And this gets the natives restless, if you will, from all over, right? No matter what side you are on. He's pushing the envelope in the media, suing them and winning. People are questioning, all right, well, what can I say? What can I not say? They're questioning him too. So he's putting all of these things on the table, and we've never all at once, I think, have discussed on a national level so many important issues at the exact same time.
Absolutely. Let me tell you what they're saying in the audience. Joe Moore says, peace and respect. Shout out to you, Joe Moore. Stanley says, Mel, you and Candace are a dynamic duo. Always a treat when both of you are together here. Wow, we have some fans in the building. That's pretty good. That's amazing.
Yes.
Thank you, Stanley.
Thank you, Stanley. We appreciate that. We really do. We really do. Yeah.
I wanted to have you, since you're the expert, can you help everybody understand the difference between why there's 2 cases for Luigi Mangione and what we can expect going forward with the court dates?
Yeah, and I'm glad you reminded me of those dates. Of course, they're kind of easy for me to remember because that's my birthday. But now that I know them, you have state and federal charges that Luigi Mangione is going through the process of kind of filtering. His journey is going to involve New York, which we've seen already, New York State. It's eventually going to involve Pennsylvania. If you remember, they found him in Altoona, Pennsylvania at that McDonald's. And then we have federal charges in New York. And that's what we are moving on to next. We dealt with the state to some extent in that, well, what is the evidence going to look like? A lot of police officers, a lot of people were brought in order to determine whether or not the evidence that was garnered was properly secured. And as you said, the judge is going to make a decision on that state level, what's going to happen and what can be considered as evidence when he actually goes to trial. Remember, all of this is just build up to the trial. There's no jury questionnaires out yet, none of that. We're just figuring out, well, what evidence can we use? Now we are going on to federal charges, and federal charges happen when you are dealing with someone like Luigi Mangione who crossed state lines in order to carry out this horrific deed. Allegedly, right? In fact, he came from Georgia. He came into New York on a bus. Then he took another bus and went over to Pennsylvania. Then that makes it a federal crime. And certainly what he did is punishable by at least a year in prison. And that also puts it into the federal arena. That's what we will be dealing with next. The last thing that we are going to hear about, and he actually refused on a couple of occasions to even appear online, digitally speaking, in these Pennsylvania courtrooms. So we haven't heard much from Pennsylvania, but that is next. So we are in the middle right now of what's going on the state level and the federal level. They probably will do the state level case first and then move on to federal court. But who knows? The judge may decide otherwise. So, but he's charged in all of these places. And if he's convicted in all 3, normally their sentences, they meaning defendant sentences who are convicted, they normally do run concurrently. And he's got a lot of years ahead of him if, in fact, prosecutors can prove that he killed Brian Thompson.
All right. If I had not met you in person, I would think you're AI because you're so polished.
Well, wait a minute.
Very few people are so polished as you. A lot of people in the audience feel the same way. I just want you to know. I have to give you your flowers now.
Oh, well, listen, thank you. Well, that means I need to smile a little more and act like a little more natural. That makes me feel like I'm, doing the robot over here. But no, that's good to know. That's good to know. And let me say, since you said this, just for those of you who don't know how Mel really gets down when he goes to court, it's so impeccable. And he knows everybody online and he knows how to interact with folks. And that's exactly how we met, because we had this open door where it was like, okay, let's just help each other through this whole process. And at the end of the day, we know that that has served us both well. So I'm glad that we were able to end up being here. But thank you for that compliment.
And guess what? We reached our time. Could you give the good folks a last closing argument? I would say argument.
I will say this, when you read these headlines, I would just encourage people not to read them as headlines that are outside of them. Look at these headlines as to how your tax money is working for you, because it's got to work, right? One day you might be a part of it. It's good to learn from these hot button issues that we see in the law, because really it's a system that belongs to us. I also invite people to come down and, be a part of the public and take part in the process, as opposed to just looking at it on TV. This isn't a time, back in the day, where just Walter Cronkite who was, giving the news. You can be a part of the process and understand how the system works. And I think that that's the better route. And that's why I like what we do, since we're up close and personal. And, we're not legacy media, albeit we've been on it, but it's kind of a different perspective when you have all these people online who are giving their own personal perspective and how the law works. Allows you to see it from a different viewpoint.
Thank you so much for coming on tonight. We'll see you next week on Wednesday. Could you tell everybody how to follow you on Sundays?
All right. Follow me at Candace Kelly TV. And then you can go to Not All Hood, where we go live Sundays at 7 p.m.
All right. Very good. So everyone, we're going to be back at 9:00 with criminal defense attorney Calvin Johnson. Thank you for all the participation. Candace, be well. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Different voices, but the same song. Living a world where we all belong. Kindness leading the way, breaking the chains. In the symphony of love, the thing remains. Embracing diversity, brighter days in sight. Watching the world sharing love and light. Hearts beating as one in our peaceful flight. Colors of harmony, painting the night. United we stand in love's pure might. Harmony, painting the night. United we stand in love's pure might.